Hello, everyone. It's a beautiful spring day here in Colorado, and I couldn't be more pleased to be spending some time with my friend Camille Wanliss, founder of Galleyway, online platform that spotlights opportunities for BIPOC writers in literature, poetry, television, film, and theater. Camille is a New York-based writer of Caribbean descent. She is a 2022 Peer Plus Fellow and was selected for AWP's Writer to Writer Mentorship Program, the NYFA DCLA City Artist Corp Grant, and among the winners of 2020 Pigeon Pages Essay Contest. Her work has appeared in Plant and Mag, Raising Mothers, Anomaly, Weird Sisters, among others. Additional honors include the Adria Schwartz Award in Women's Fiction, the Small Axe Literary Prize shortlist, and fellowships and residencies from Mineral School, Vermont Studio Center, and Writing in the Margins. She earned her MFA in creative writing from the City College of New York. So welcome, Camille, and thanks for taking time to chat with me for the Telltale Poetry Submission interview series.
Of course. Thank you so much, Trish. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
It's so much fun that we get to connect in different ways. Last few years, that's really been, we keep bumping into each other and having reasons to connect, and it's always great fun. Yes. And so I just have always admired what you've been doing with Galleyway. It's really so professionally done, and I just think it's a really great resource. It's so important. So yeah. What was the original inspiration for creating Galleyway, and how did you get it started?
Yeah, I always say that Galleyway was like a personal need that sort of like morphed into this like communal benefit. It simply began as a way for me to keep track of writing opportunities and places for me to submit work to. So I write fiction. And I will say that one of the most like difficult things coming out of my MFA program was just trying to find places that would accept my work. So I'll say that, I write mainly about like Caribbean identity. A lot of the work that I do is, takes place in other countries. It incorporates Caribbean dialect, and, especially coming out of my MFA program at the time, this was like 2011, there weren't too many places that were, really accepting that kind of work. So it was kind of very limiting of where I can send my work to. So a lot of the times I was just trying to find like journals, contests, and places of where I could submit my work to. So I kind of just had to start my own like database of where I could of writing opportunities and that sort of thing. And so a few years into that process, and I would say it was maybe around 2015 or so, I would say like Black Lives Matter sort of came into like this national consciousness. And there was like this like national conversation around like race and racial equity that was sort of like permeating all these different fields. At the time, I think, with Hollywood, there was like Oscar So White, and it was also going into the publishing industry, and it sort of got me thinking as to, what stories were being amplified and through whose lens were these stories being told. And so an example I can give you is, at the time there was this like huge scandal about an anthology that had published a white poet under a Chinese pseudonym. And I think the justification at the time was like, he felt his work was, he had a better chance of being accepted. There's also a theater in LA at the time that had staged a play by a conservative playwright about the murder of Mike Brown at the hands of Ferguson PD. And so, clearly these were, opportunities that could have gone to like poets and writers of color. And I thought, a way to combat like the co-opting of stories by people of color and marginalized communities was to sort of reclaim those narratives. And I thought if there was this one theater that was willing to stage this play, then clearly there were maybe there were 5 theaters that were looking for playwrights of color who had scripts that were, accurate and authentic. And so I would scour the internet, like for these, and I found them, and I was like, okay, well, these need to be shared with, these need to be shared with the world. And so I realized, like, okay, well, my little database can't just be, there's a larger need for it. I need to share.
Sure.
Yeah, this needs to be shared. And I recognized that this wasn't just, it couldn't just be for me. And so, since, I launched it in Galleyway, it was under a different name actually, but I launched it in 2016. And since then I've shared more than 6,000 opportunities. And at the height of the pandemic, I sort of, expanded it to other things, began offering virtual writing sessions. So now once a week, I used to do it twice a week, but now once a week, I had like a gathering space online for writers of all disciplines who want to just get together and kind of hold themselves accountable to completing projects. I also produced an audio series called Heard Word for poets. It's like an audio series, so poets will send me their like audio of themselves reading their work, and I'll place that on my website. And that's sort of grown into an open mic series that I do now in Brooklyn, New York. Also hosting an open mic event tomorrow, which is an offshoot of that audio series with a bookstore in Brooklyn called Adana Bookstore. So it's kind of like morphed into this like different thing. So it started off as these opportunities, but it's, I've built a community around it, which I'm really, really grateful for.
Yes, that's so incredible.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's so important, that it's one thing to recognize a need. It's another to continue to find those blank spots,
Yes.
that really need to be filled. And it's really just about paying attention.
Yes.
And then once you pick that up, once you see it, to take those baby steps, because it's interesting how like some things don't take all that much work, or they can be spin-offs of things you're already doing. And that's sort of what you described. And that's kind of how we design like what our projects turn into. And ultimately they change and morph over time, right? Like,
absolutely.
I mean, the fact that you turned this kind of online resource into an actual, community programming in person now, thank goodness. That's just awesome. I really love that so much.
Oh, thank you.
But I do have to ask you, because I realized I don't know where the name Galleyway came from.
It's funny, so like what they send you before your book actually gets into the world. It's called like galleys.
Your galleys. Yes. I love it.
It's sort of like a play on alleyway and galleys. So it just, sort of play on that.
It's the way for your galleys. It's the way your galleys make their way
into the world. Yes.
That is awesome. And it's unique, and it does have sort of like a sense of like direction about it.
Yes.
Which is really awesome, and it's easy to remember. And it's something that you can apply to you can use the name in a variety of ways, that's great when you come up with something that, you really can apply to whatever project you're working on, right? Absolutely. That's awesome. So what has surprised you most about Galleyway and your experience with it so far?
Yeah, I'll say what surprised me the most is how much it's resonated with people, especially emerging writers. I'm always very thrilled when someone reaches out to me and say, I've submitted for the first time to an anthology or a journal, and it's been accepted. And the first time I saw this opportunity was on Galleyway. Recently, one of the attendees who for my virtual writing session, I saw one of her like Instagram posts, and she has just contributed to an anthology that's just being published for Asian writers. And I was like, oh, that's great. I would love to, highlight you in one of Galleyway's newsletters. And she was like, oh yeah. So I said, send me your stuff. And she was like, oh, by the way, I first learned about this like in 2020 on Galleyway. And I was like, oh, you okay? Like, that's like, wow, that's amazing. Like, I didn't even realize the Galleyway connection. I just thought she had, like, this was just
success. Yeah.
Yes, this was. And so I'm just always thrilled when I learn stuff like that, like it's like, oh, okay, so sometimes I do these things and I'm just like, oh, is anybody even listen? Like, is anybody even out there? Like, you just like you're posting these things and they're just going out into the ether. Like, does anyone even care? So when I see stuff like that, it's like, oh, okay, so what is someone actually did see that post. Like someone, it resonated with someone, and I'm just really happy that someone got something out of it, like they submitted their work and someone saw it and it got accepted into something. That like makes me really, really happy. Like, I'm so thrilled when I see stuff like that. So I'm really surprised. So that's been like the most surprising things. Like, oh, okay, it's actually somebody's actually seeing these things. It's working.
It's working. Yes. No, I agree. That's definitely one of the most rewarding things. And maybe this happens to you too, but maybe you hear it from some of the markets, hey, I'm getting some great work from folks who are seeing it on your website, and you're like, oh, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, on both sides of the coin, it's really great. And, really the writing community as a whole is a very, giving, friendly, like everybody's sort of going after the same thing. And, once someone makes that initial effort, I find that people are so grateful and so gracious and just want to be a part. They just want to join in some way. So sites like yours really make that possible. And especially for people of color, like making that space where they feel like they can, jump in and contribute, and, that it's just important. It's a good space.
Yes. That was my mission. That has always been my goal from the beginning, is to, give a voice to, to writers of color, to let them know, like, there are many opportunities out here for you. You just have to, especially when I first began, it's like, oh, where do I even look, but there are many opportunities out here, and I want to make that process like really easy for people.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to be able to just be like, oh, I can go to Galleyway on, June 1st or July 1st. And I know like there's opportunities there once I sign on, so.
Yeah. Because then you're not trying to hit certain deadlines. There's a resource where you can go find what's current. There's always going to be something that you can do. And I think that was something that I learned really early on when I was sending work out. I just felt like, oh, I have to send it in before this deadline. Oh, I have to make sure I hit this deadline. Yeah. And, that might still be true if there's like, something that's a really great fit, or there's something you really, really are looking forward to. But in general, those opportunities just keep coming around.
Yeah, there's always there's something always rotating. There's something always there.
So instead of like don't stress trying to finish finish your project, get your best work done, and then go see, well, where's a good place for me to send this now? Like, is there, because I really did worry about that when I was younger. I was putting all these dates on my calendar and was just like, and then I did learn, well, I shouldn't say younger, when I was starting this, which was around that same time you did. So I wasn't that much younger, but at any rate, when you're first getting into this, it can be intimidating. The deadlines can make you feel like you're going to miss out on an opportunity. And really, there's just so many. So
absolutely.
Speaking of community, what would you like to see more of in the literary community?
Yeah, I would say I kind of feel like some of us are already doing this, which is great. But I think we've come to a point where, we have to kind of do so much with so little. And so collaboration for me is like really absolutely vital. The literary community, it's big, but it's also very small. And it can also feel very like competitive. We're all trying to get the attention of the same audience, the same agents. But there's a really great quote from Issa Rae about like not networking up, but like networking across, which I love. And for me, some of the most amazing things have happened once I connected with and started partnering and collaborating with other people within my literary spaces, including you, Trish. You have been absolutely vital in my life and my literary career, which is like, I can't thank you enough. So thank you. Partnering with Rowana Abensetz from Spoken Black Girl, the woman that I'm partnering with for the open mic series, Darlene Okpo at Adana Bookstore, Glory Edom with Well Read Black Girl. Like these, I noticed that once I, started working with them, like things have changed, and
yes.
We have to work together. It's, it's we're better off that way, and we can definitely get a lot more work done when we collaborate with each other. It's not a competition. Absolutely. It's a sisterhood. Like we let's collaborate with each other. Let's help one another.
I think so too, and I think that's what's so important about sites like Galleyway is giving people that permission. Like, it's okay to collaborate. It isn't competition. That actually isn't, your work. If you put some effort into it, there's a home for it.
Yes.
And so it's not about quality. For those people who are really putting the effort in, it's not about quality. It's about finding the right fit. And so it isn't a competition. Because your piece is going to fit somewhere where someone else's piece might not. And you know what? When you get rejected, it could just be making room for that next best spot that was actually a better fit. Yeah. So you have to sort of, go with that and understand that those opportunities they're going to come to you, and really they come faster and much more plentiful if you are collaborating, if you are, sharing the experience with other writers, and like you said, I mean, across, your peers for sure, but also you've got, emerging writers, you've got those just starting, and then some that have been doing it for a while, and you all have different experiences that can play off of each other.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
Yeah, yes. I love that. I'm 100%
different levels,
with you.
Yeah, all those different levels, helping each other out. Like, let's help each other out, I'm totally down for that. Like, that's totally needed. It's absolutely needed.
Yep, I agree. That's so great. And it brings people to you. It brings you readers. Yes. It brings you fans, So yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, this is awesome. I could seriously, I could talk to you for hours. I think we know that about each other already, but so we've talked about a lot of things. We've kind of given a lot of advice. Is there any other advice that you would specifically give to our Telltale Poetry listeners?
I would say you're never done learning. I would say, for me, I was one of these people that was like, oh, as soon as I was done with my MFA program, I was like, oh, I know everything. Like, I know absolutely nothing. Definitely attend, writer workshops, poetry workshops, continue learning, attend those retreats, residencies, constantly work on honing your craft, and build community. Especially for me, like, writing is often a really solitary process. And it's really vital to connect with other like-minded individuals. So, like, join a writing group, apply for a mentorship program, sign up for that open mic you've always wanted to, like, that's a really great way to build community. That's especially for me, I'm one of these people who I like to call like a extreme introvert, but I will say that Galloway has been one of these really great things that has kind of like pulled me out of that shell. And I wouldn't necessarily have, if you had told me 2 years ago that I would be hosting events or speaking in front of people, I would not have believed, I would not have believed you. You know what I mean? But finding like-minded people, building community, these are ways to not only grow your brand, grow yourself, expand who you are as a person as well.
No, I love that. I mean, I think our journeys have been very similar, of course.
Yeah.
I feel very much the same way. And what's really been amazing about this process, and I think if I were to kind of sum up both of our journeys, is that, what we've done to sort of give back or fill a need was really just an extension of ourselves, not realizing that we were going to get so much back.
Yes, absolutely.
So rewarding. And people,
Yes.
People are like, oh, why do you call yourself selfish poet? And I'm like, well, because originally I just did this for me. Like, I didn't know.
That is
I didn't know it was going to help all these other people.
That is
and then once it started helping, you're like hooked. You're like, I'm addicted to this.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's so rewarding. It's really, and people, like I said, are so gracious and they're so grateful. And it's really just, it's not a bad way to be in the community.
It's so true. I totally agree. I totally agree. And that's exactly how it was for me. It was like, oh, I'm going to do this for me. And then it was like, oh no, this is for everyone. It is for everyone.
Oh, I love it so much. So tell us a little bit, what are you working on right now? Can you share a little?
Sure. I'm working on a few things. The main thing, which I call like sort of the bane of my existence, is this manuscript that I've been working on for an extremely long time, but I love it as well. It's a historical novel set in 1960s Jamaica. And it follows a family over like the course of a year. They own a sugar plantation, and some tragedy happens and they have to like kind of come together, but there's kind of like family jealousy and family secrets that come out. So it's I'm still working on it. It's a bear. I'm trying to get through it, but so that's the main thing I'm working on.
That's awesome.
And then I also have the workshop series that I do, the submission process workshop series. And so I'm kind of adapting that into like a 4-week workshop series right now with Hugo House.
Excellent. I love Hugo House.
Yes, and that's going to be on June 23rd online. Because, for many writers, they feel really overwhelmed with where to submit, like I was saying before, where to submit for journals and fellowships and grants and residencies. So my goal is mainly to like demystify that process. So I'm going to share resources on where to find opportunities, and just tell people how to get share how to get the most out of their application process, from where to, find opportunities to develop strong bios and artist statements and project proposals. So that's what I'm working on now. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. All right, great. So how can writers sign up to get updates from Galleyway?
Sure. Writers can go straight to the website, galleyway.com. It's spelled like alleyway with G at the beginning. And you can also sign up for the newsletter. I have a bi-weekly newsletter that I send out. So the first of the month and then middle of the month. And you can sign up on the website as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Trish.
As I said, I could just talk to you for hours, but I think this was going to be really, really helpful for our listeners. And it was just such a pleasure to have you. And I'm sure we're going to find reasons to connect virtually and hopefully in person someday.
Yes.
But definitely great to connect with you today. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Thank you so much, Trish.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.